Hello. Hello. I hope you guys are doing well. So 3rd John, this is a book I have not previously gone through. It's one chapter with 14 verses, and it is an admonition to retain fellowship among the brotherhood. And there are two people that are contrasted here, Diophystes and Demetrius. This letter is specifically written to Gaius, Gaius, I'm not sure how you pronounce his name, but he has actually been mentioned in the book of Acts, Romans, and 1 Corinthians. He was mentioned in Acts 19. Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, they were Paul's companions in travel. Assuming they're the same, which I have no reason to suspect that they're not. He is also mentioned in Acts 20 and in Romans 16 as hosting Paul. And also in 1 Corinthians 1 as one that Paul baptized. And then here in 3rd John as the recipient of this letter to John. So we know that he is a brother, and we know that he was closely related to Paul and to John. And so this is going to talk about Christian fellowship, or fellowship amongst the brotherhood, and the admonition to do that. 2nd John was written to a specific woman and her children, that it was applauding them in walking in love and telling them to guard against falsehoods and false doctrines, to make sure that they guard their heart and to not let those falsehoods in, because it might not be that it destroys them. They might be strong enough to withstand, but other people could be led astray as a result. So now the focus of 3rd John is to give instruction to continue in fellowship. We'll just leave it at that. So my Bible gives a preview, a preface of this chapter, which to be honest is almost as long as the chapter itself. It says, in 3rd John, the apostle encourages fellowship with Christian brothers. Following his expression of love for Gaius, John assures him of his prayers for his health and voices his joy over Gaius's persistent walk in truth, and for the manner in which he shows hospitality and support for missionaries who have come to his church. But not everyone in the church feels the same way. Diophystes' heart is 180 degrees removed from Gaius' heart. He is no longer living in love. Pride has taken precedence in his life. He has refused a letter John has written for the church, fearing that his authority might be superseded by that of the apostle. That goes directly back to the reason that the Pharisees hated Jesus, specifically cited as such in John, I want to say 13, as that they feared that they would lose their position. It might not have been John 13. Regardless, that was specifically cited as the reason that the Pharisees wanted to put Jesus to death, was because they feared that they would lose their position. Pride had entered their heart, and they were firmly set against Jesus and all that he stood for selfish reasons. And so we see this exact same thing in Diophystus' heart. He did not want to have anything to do with John, because he didn't want John's knowledge or wisdom or position or purpose to supersede his own. He didn't want to be outshined. He forbids others to do so, talking about Diophystus, and even expels them from the church if they disobey him. He's ruling with an iron fist. John uses this negative example as an opportunity to encourage Gaius to continue his hospitality. Demetrius has a good testimony and may even be one of those turned away by Diophystus. He is widely known for his good character and his loyalty to the truth. Here he is well commended by John and stands as a positive example for Gaius. So 3rd John 1, starting in verse 1, there's 14 verses. The elder, John, unto the beloved Gaius, whom I love in the truth. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. For I rejoiced greatly when the brethren came and testified of the truth that is in thee, even as thou walkest in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in the truth. And isn't that, I mean, as a parent, the thing that I am most proud of in this world is that my child is saved and that he is a good person. I mean, good, whatever we say, there are a lot of people who think they're good, but they're not. That he is a law-abiding, rule-abiding, morally, ethically straight and narrow person. But as a parent, that is the thing that I am most proud of. All of my accomplishments aside, I am most proud that my son is saved, that his eternity is secured, and that he grew up to be an upstanding citizen. He is a good person, and he wants to help others, and all of that. I am most proud of him. And so that's the kind of the closest thing that I have to compare this to, is that John doesn't have any greater joy than seeing someone he evangelized go pay it forward. That's kind of how I look at this on a different scale with my own child. And that's how John is looking at this is he's looking at the people that he taught and set on a course, a path for Jesus. He's looking at them as his children, and he's proud of them. He says, I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. And as a parent, there's no greater joy that my son does as well, my own flesh and blood. Beloved, thou doest faithfully whatsoever thou doest to the brethren and to the strangers, which have borne witness of the charity before the church, whom if thou bring forward on their journey after a godly sort, thou shalt do well. This is one of the things that Timothy talked about, or Paul talked about to Timothy in his epistles, was that even if people outside the church do not believe the same as the church, the duty of the pastor and the elders is to give them nothing negative to speak of. The worst thing that you can do is set a bad example for unbelievers. Believers, their eternity is secure. So the biggest of the worries is set to rest. But for unbelievers who see believers acting in a poor way, the worst thing that we can do is set a bad example. And so that's the one thing that Timothy was admonished not to do, is regardless of whether people outside the church agree with your theology or your doctrines or not, at least don't give them anything negative to talk about. At least be moral and ethical and upstanding, a good citizen to the community, so that they don't have anything negative to speak about you personally that would dissuade them from having to do with you theologically, religiously, whatever. But he's commending Gaius on his citizenship to the church and outside of the church. Because that for his name's sake they went forth, taking nothing from the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we might be fellow helpers to the truth. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. So John had written an epistle that was not received, that it was turned aside by this guy who didn't want to be preempted by John. Wherefore, if I come, I will remember his deeds which he doeth, prating against us with malicious words, and not content therewith, neither doth he himself receive the brethren, and forbiddeth them that would, and casteth them out of the church. So it wasn't even that he retained a neutral position about these missionaries, is he took a negative stance. He was actually working against them and being motivated against them. It wasn't even that he just decided not to help them, but he was proactively working against them and being malicious toward them. Beloved, follow not that which is evil, but that which is good. He that doeth good is of God, but he that doeth evil hath not seen God. And it goes to motivation of heart. This is one of the very basic principles that Jesus taught, Matthew 5-7, Sermon on the Mount, his first address toward Israel, was that it's not what goes into the mouth as food that defiles a person. It's what comes out of the mouth. Because the actions, the tongue, James talks about this too, is that the tongue is the smallest part of the body and can work the greatest amount of evil. It is not what goes into a person, what they consume, because what the body doesn't use, it expels for waste. But it's what comes out of the mouth that matters, because that goes to motivation of the heart. Demetrius hath good report of all men. So this is the example that Gaius is being admonished to follow, not the one of Diotrephes, who turned away and was malicious toward missionaries, so that he retained his position, didn't lose it. But Demetrius is the one that he should follow the example of. Hath good report of all men and of the truth itself. Yea, and we also bear record, and ye know that our record is true. I had many things to write, but I will not with ink and pen write unto thee. But I trust that I shall shortly see thee, and we shall speak face to face. Peace be to thee. Our friends salute thee. Greet the friends by name. And so that is 3 John. Very short, to the point. If you guys have any questions, comments, or feedback, let me know. When next we meet, we will begin going through Matthew and Mark. Stay tuned. I'll see you guys later.